Good morning, dear parents and dear children. Hope you all are fine and doing well. Today, let us discuss about English subject. Children, have you ever experienced a heavy rainy season? Yes, of course. When there are floods and heavy rains, we all remain at home. We all feel closed in the house. Naturally, children will have lot of doubts, lot of imaginations, and many mothers love to teach their kids something. In the story, we have the same experience. Kids always ask their mothers to prepare something special. In the story, The Lion and the Loons, you understand the mother of Geeti is trying to bake a cake for them, whereby she teaches them the recipe of the cake, help them to eat, and then save some for next day. Then what happened? Let us view the story. Once it started raining, it just wouldn't stop. The sky wept great tears in an endless stream until the clouds had entered everyone's hearts and made them feel as grey and weepy as the weather, but still it rained on and on. Everyone stayed at home, gloomy and bored. Geeti wished to do something. Nothing exciting could happen, said Vicky. Mummy wouldn't let them go out, but she tried to cheer them up by baking a cake. The children helped too. The cake was Jimmy, and they ate it hot. The rest they covered and left on the table. They both wonder what happened to the animals outside. They must be cooped up in their cages, they thought. But they said, what will happen to the wild animals, like tigers in the jungles, birds on the trees? What would they do in such a rainy time? At least they have somewhere to hide. But what about the animals in the zoo? And it was true. The animals in the zoo were worried and irritable. The wet weather was terrible for the creatures, big and small. The more it rained, the more everything filled up with water. The moat around the lion's enclosure filled up too. The lion watched. He was an old fellow who had never been out of the enclosure. He had never seen anything like this before. As the water lapped against the sides of the moat temptingly, the old fellow decided to make a go for it. He sniffed into the water and then, with one big breath, he jumped right in. At first, he sank. Then he panicked. He thought for one awful moment that he was going to die. But he didn't. His mighty head popped up and he paddled along until he could feel the wall just under his chin. Putting his big paws onto the wall, he heaved himself up. And then he was out and free to walk around the world, just as he had seen hundreds of people do. Now he, mighty king, was going to have the adventure of a lifetime. No one saw him, for it was night and all the zookeepers were fast asleep. Lion walked out, king of everything. He saw swiftly, softly. He crept on padded feet the enclosure next to him. He grinned at the bear, who woke up with a start. He thought he was free. He then had an idea. He was going to be really free. What was the point of freedom if he was still within the four walls of the zoo? So, asking the way to every cage he passed, Lion reached the main gate. He could smell a human. He carefully peered into the ticket booth. Sure enough, the guard sat there, wouldn't let him just walk out. So he waited and watched. The guard didn't move. He snored gently, and the lion was sure that the man was fast asleep. He patted his way past him gently. The lion felt really free. He walked around, looking with wonder at the big, black, wet roads. He stared up at the high buildings and he sniffed at people huddled up, asleep in the driest corners they could find. One little child peeped out of his thin blanket and saw him. He whispered, "Papa, there's a lion on the loose." "Yes, yes," said his papa sleepily. And the lion went on. This was the longest walk that he had ever had. He was in the bazaar now. But of course, everyone was fast asleep. He peered into shop windows, fascinated by the glittering things that shone there. He walked on and on and on until he was one very wet, hungry, and tired lion. He now suddenly caught the smell of freshly baked cake. He had never smelled anything so invitingly warm or warmly inviting. Sniff, sniff, he found the window to Geeti and Vicky's room. Open quickly, quietly. He jumped right in. He saw the children asleep in their soft, warm beds, and he felt like getting in with them. But first, to find out where that delicious smell was coming from. Sniff, sniff, sniff. Of course, with his sharp lion's nose, he found the cake, and with his sharp lion's teeth, he quickly gulped it down. It was delicious, not like the smelly raw meat he usually got. And now to bed. Slipping back into the children's room, Lion tried to get into Vicky's bed, but it was too small for one big lion, so he crawled down under the bed and found it wonderfully cozy, just right for one big lion. Soon he was fast asleep. Next morning, Mummy woke up to find the missing cake. "Who had eaten the cake?" Mother asked. "It must have been eaten by the lion," said Geeti. "What lion?" "Geeti, don't be silly." "She's not being silly," said Vicky. "There's a lion under my bed." "What?" shouted Mummy loudly. And she rushed right away to look for the lion under her daughter's bed. She looked, but there was no lion there. "Oh, children," she said crossly, "you gave me a fright. Of course, there's no lion there." "But there was, Mummy," protested the children. "Look, there are lion paw prints on the carpet and a big wet patch on our beds. The lion hair on my sheet." Mummy had believed them. But try as they might, they couldn't find the lion anymore. And do you know why? The lion had a good snoop and decided to get back to his cage before there was any fuss. So he had slipped away at dawn and no one could see him going. He slipped past the guard who still lay asleep and swam back into the cage. What an adventure it had been! But he was glad to be home. As soon as the rain stopped, Geeti and Vicky went to the zoo. They stood outside the lion's enclosure and whispered to each other. I am sure that our lion recognized them too and let out a big rumbling roar of a thank you to his little friends. Maybe next time it rains very hard, lion may come to your house. So remember to give him some freshly baked cake. Did you understand, children? This all an imagination of the lion on the loose. Thank you. Have a great day.